So Ben, you're now out here for the summer, and you're working at a grill basically, and you're starting to think maybe you want to move here or not. What's going on?
Well, basically the summer season is the busy season, and September rolled around, and that was a turning point for me. And it was essentially, am I going to stay or am I going to go back? And it was relatively easy at the time. I was 25, and it was go back to the drudgery and a really hard schedule, or enjoy living in what I think is really the most special corner of the country, and work at a comfortable pace. And so I just decided to stay. I think I went back, packed up my stuff, and just said, okay, that's it, I'm here.
What did your friends in your social circle back home think, or in New York City,
right,
of you coming out to where? Hood River?
Yeah, exactly. And they all say Oregon. And yes, it was an interesting thing. I think people didn't understand it, and it really is the antithesis. I mean, there's no better way of saying it. I mean, New York City is just packed with people and a lot of choices. I think that's what's special about New York, is just there's so many people doing their thing, so many things offered. You really have the world available to you. And Hood River had one pizza place, and I think the Skylight Theater was there at the time, so you could see a movie. And that was about it.
Yeah, because this was mid-'90s, you said.
That's right.
Yeah.
But I had a mountain bike, and I was windsurfing and hiking and enjoying the great outdoors, as it were, in immediate access. And I feel like those were the choices that I wanted, and that's what was available to me.
So for you, it just made sense. It seemed like a good move.
It was a great move at the time. It was what I wanted, and I wasn't forecasting. I felt like, this is what I want to do right now, and that was an easy one.
Yeah.
And the restaurant then became a jumping off point, because I had the opportunity to give it some direction. And what I took from New York City, and what I still have with me today, is the idea that the menu at the restaurant should be something flowing and changing. It's not a document that you print and then send off to the printers and then come back to it 3 months later and struggle to adhere to the menu, but it's the other way around. And so we put a chalkboard up at the 6th Street, and we said we will write every day what we want to sell. We'll have this regular menu, but then we'll have the creativity to make something special and put it up on the board. And that really dictated everything that I've done since. And so the search for a venue that would allow me to really realize that is how Celilo came into being.
So you realized you had struck a chord with folks. Like, they liked this sort of consistent change, but yet the staples. And were you thinking, though, I'm gonna pursue this on my own, sort of, or where were you at from that standpoint?
No, I never thought that I was, wasn't looking for go it alone. And actually, I partnered with Maui Meyer and then Jacqueline Carey. They are my business partners with Celilo as well. And I think that we just made a good team. We all had the same kind of work ethic, and it was important that we all felt like we were, working hard basically to support the business. But the 6th Street was a model that worked for me to begin with, in the mid-'90s Hood River, and it's a very broad menu with something for everybody. And we said, okay, at some point in time, we want to talk about the next project. And really what happened is we started to meet local farmers, and they realized that we were interested in the special ingredients that come from our region. And Zion Farms actually is the sort of the first relationship that we made. They are greens growers. They grow spinach and arugula and salad mix up in the Dalles, up 17 miles down a dirt road. I mean, they are way out there and dedicated to what they do. And they grow salad greens. They grow leafy greens that are unparalleled. They're just really beyond anything else. And they have a narrow season, and they don't, they have limited customers. And so we started working with them, and I realized that I need to be able to feature what these people have and have it on the menu in a way that if they call me and say, well, that's it, we just ran to the end of, or there were beetles or something that came along and destroyed this next crop, there will be a 3-week gap. We got to be able to change the menu as often as necessary to deal with the special things that are coming, highlight them when they're there, and then be able to change the menu when necessary. Part two of that was relationships with mushroom foragers. And Oregon is the spot. When I was living in New York City, we would get morel mushrooms flown in from Oregon.
No kidding.
Yes, and so I realized, it all started to come together. I'm at the source.
Yeah.
And I have the people who pick the mushrooms come to the back door of the restaurant. There's a basket of this prized ingredient, and they're still dusting the pine needles off of them. So that's when it all started to come together, and I wanted to expand on that, really develop these relationships and get to know people who are growing food, and that's now become the focus of what we do today.
So do you think that was kind of the foundation then of Celilo?
Absolutely.
Still is then?
It is. I think that was the driving idea. Let's start over and create a menu that has no obligation to anything or anyone or anyone's opinion of what it should be. Let's design dishes that are free-flowing, that are ingredient-driven. That's what I say. The ingredients tell us what's going to be on the menu. The challenge for us is, here's what we have. What are we going to make?
Yeah. Because if your ingredients are dictating what you're going to put out, and your ingredients may or may not be available, that's got to be quite challenging.
Well, it is and it isn't. I think the beauty of it is that there's no point in time that I look at the menu and say, oh, we're out of such and such. And then I got to pick up the phone and say, hey, do you have this? Do you have this? How can I get it? And then struggle to find something. That just never happens.
Really?
It's always the flip side, which is, whoa, I have not only arugula and spinach, but also 3 different kinds of mustard greens, and how am I going to make something out of this? But that's a beautiful thing.
Yeah.
And that, to me, that's the restaurant model of today.
Okay. Well, when we come back, let's talk about what it is to be a chef and what it's like to also, be a partner in owning a restaurant. And in these challenging times and everything, I can imagine that's, it's a difficult job to start with, but it's probably compounded with this economy. So we'll discuss that when we come back, and stick with us. Be right back.
Next.
That's what reality TV is ultimately, is let's put people in ridiculous circumstances, and then they'll act in an outrageous way. The Iron Chef is a masterful performance. Those people are true professionals, and what they do is incredible.